Right, guys, welcome back to the podcast, episode number 14 of Adapting to Change. I'm here with Nick and Alan, and we've also got a very special guest as we're going to take a look at the more darker side of the security industry at the moment. And we welcome Leigh Turner to the podcast. Leigh, welcome. How are you doing this morning?
I'm great. Feeling a bit under the weather, but we'll get over that.
Cool. Well, like I said, welcome to the show. So what we're going to touch on is illegal practices in the security industry, particularly around the deployment of security officers, and amongst a whole raft of things that you and your organisations do. Before we get into that, just give us a little bit of a feel for who you are, what you're doing in the industry now, and kind of just who you are, mate.
Okay, so as everyone knows, they've seen my posts on LinkedIn. They've probably seen it on Facebook as well, which we've just recently been doing, basically pushing the labor exploitation campaign to get the industry back on its legs and get rid of this criminal element in total. So I own a few organizations: Elite Tactical Force Security, Tactical Group, which is a boot camp specialist, and the UK Security Industry Compliance Association. Now, for the past couple of months, we've been pushing really hard to get the SIA and other government bodies to realize that labor exploitation is the biggest threat to the industry.
So from the outside looking in, because obviously with your link, for people that haven't seen, a lot of your activity on LinkedIn is where you'll pull a screenshot from a WhatsApp group, and that will have the details of a shift, whether it's working in a supermarket or on an industrial estate or whatever, and it'll be quite evident from that post that there's a number of illegal factors within that. So the hourly rate will be often £8.50, £9, well below the minimum wage. It'll make references to cash in hand and things like that. Up until maybe, 6-12 months, probably about 12, 15 months ago, we started seeing some traction from a LinkedIn profile by the name of Adam Jones. And that's when these first kind of came relevant to me. How did you come across these? How did you find out about them?
Well, I knew about them before Adam Jones. And what was happening is when he started posting it, I was wondering what else is behind this. So after a couple of months of researching it before his disappearance, it was evident that there was a lot of actual slavery going on in the industry, a lot of tax evasion going on, a lot of the companies that are involved in the supply chain wasn't just small-time players in the industry. And it just caused a picture to now start creating a pattern of an insider risk, because the biggest thing that we're questioning ourselves at the moment was Manchester bombing one of those WhatsApp groups, was Brixton Academy the other one. Was that another case of modern day slavery?
Yeah. I mean, what have you been finding? I mean, we've seen the post and we've seen that there've been certain companies linked. Kind of what I'm maybe taking away from that is it's maybe not those bigger players directly. It's maybe their supply chain of subcontractors that they're using, possibly. What are you seeing from that? Are you seeing that it's directly these big companies, or is it the supply chain, or is it both?
Well, from conversations that we've had with certain individuals, no names mentioned, and what they've turned around and said is they believe that it's fabricated, but we know they're not fabricated because the facts is timing, the shift, and the location. Once one of these big companies pop up and they turn around and say, have you got any more of that details of that job on WhatsApp? You 9 times out of 10 know that they know about it, but because they've been caught, they have to clear their conscience a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, have you ever taken any of these jobs up? So you've seen like a post that comes out and it's like a 12-hour shift or 14-hour shift that day. Have you ever like actively taken these up just to see if it's legit, if it is a genuine shift, or do you know of people that have done that?
funny enough, I have spoken about doing it, but I don't think the regulators would like me to do that. So,
And by regulators, you mean like the SIA and HMRC?
yeah, because then it would sort of like create an image that isn't really there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
and obviously it causes problems with like the investigation powers, REPA. So it's best to avoid that practice.
Yeah, I mean, have the SIA and the HMRC not, when you say this shift's been vended for tomorrow, have they not sent people to go to that location to see who the individual is who turns up? Are they not? Do they not have the resources to be able to investigate on that level?
I can't speak on the SIA themselves, but from what I know is that they have been actively out there to start enforcing, checking if they are actual real cases. And from my knowledge, they probably have found something for them to start speaking about it.
So from your point, you're actively monitoring these groups. How many are there out there?
Well, we've got 150 of them, but there's probably
individual groups.
100 in individual groups.
Wow!
But there's probably about 850 plus
across the UK.
Across the UK.
How many people on average are in these WhatsApp groups? On average,
so it can range from 900 up to 1,500.
I got added to one last year from someone whose name I won't mention, and you can see who's on it. And I went on it, and there was people's faces that I saw recognised. They may have just been added like I were. So I left the group. I kind of wish I would have stayed in it now. I could see what was going on.
How that's a really good question, actually. Provoked a thought. How do you come across these WhatsApp groups? How do you find them?
Oh, so some of them actually get posted on Facebook in the security pages. Or if a job post comes up, what they'll do is they'll say message me on WhatsApp, and then they'll send you straight to the actual link to the WhatsApp group. Or somebody will just invite you because you're in a WhatsApp group already.
Yeah. I mean, it opens up, obviously, as you well know, Leigh, a whole can of worms as to questions to ask about. So say there's 1,000 people in these WhatsApp groups. How many of these people have actually got an SIA license that have been posted to these jobs? How many of these people have legal right to work? How many of these people are, have legal right of stay in the UK? I mean, have you seen any comebacks on any investigation works on on that?
No, I haven't seen any of it lately. But obviously, we got to look at the bigger factor on it. Calls are full up, so we're not going to see anything for that for at least 4 or 5 months.
I think you said something interesting at the beginning where you said, like the Manchester bombing, for example. You said we don't know if that person, if a person was under this exploitation sort of WhatsApp group. I think we'll probably never know that. But my concern is the next one probably will be, because if something does happen, there's companies out there sending people who they're not screened to BS785A. They don't know whether they've got the right to work. They don't know whether they've got an SIA license. If they rock up with an SIA license, they don't know if it's their SIA license. So the risk is absolutely massive.
Just in terms, and then again, you've provoked a thought I had on SIA licenses. Someone who I know recently undertook their retraining, and there were 2 people on the training course who were actively going around the room and kind of whispering in the ears of the people on the training course. The course cost £700 for your CCTV, your DS, your first aid, and your registration, and then your badge. And they're saying, we can, you don't have to do this training. We can get you your badge for £400. And that was on a course 2 weeks ago, and that was run by Get Licensed. Do you think a lot of the people coming into these WhatsApp groups that maybe have a legit security license, again, could be someone like that who's gone on a course or has illegally obtained a security license without doing the proper training?
Well, that is evident because the training sector is a dirty business. So you will have that element of things being done. But from my latest recognition that the SIA, Ofqual, and all the awarding bodies are starting to implement new practices to kind of combat that trading malpractice. So hopefully we can reduce the chance of the risk being far higher or far greater. But it's a waiting game.
So from your perspective, you're monitoring all these groups. Are you taking that information, putting it into a database, and passing it on to SIA or anybody?
Yeah. So basically, the database that we've got at the moment, which we've been developing for the past couple of days, which is actually the UK Security Industry Compliance Association. That database is obviously going to be connected to regulators, HMRC, DWP, a vast majority of connections between insurance companies, NGOs, and basically clamp it down into one so that enforcement can be then distributed between every single person. And the way that we're doing that is with the free strike system. So if anyone has been doing that.
I was going to say, do you want to tell a little bit more about that system that's in play?
Yeah, so the system at the moment is still in development stages. But we're literally 75% there, almost on completion. And basically what it does is if anyone was to report a case of modern-day slavery, or we generated from what's in the WhatsApp groups, we put it onto this database. The SIA or whoever actually approves the system will be able to access all the data and take that enforcement straight without even having to second guess it, because it's come from a source. It's got the main person there, and it's got all the proof, like pay slips, bank transfers, you name it. But it all has to comply with the data protection. So,
yeah, that's really interesting. Just to kind of circle back to one of the points you made earlier, you touched on the disappearance, and let's call it that, the disappearance of Adam Jones online. We've spoken about that profile on a couple of episodes previously. Were you in contact with Adam? Do you know? I mean, if you can't say, you can't say. Do you know what's happened to him? Because he was posting similar to what you're doing, and then literally overnight just gone, and there's been nothing since.
Well, I actually was speaking to him 3 hours before his actual disappearance. And the last I knew, he was moving out of the UK. Mm-hmm. But from other sources is that we've had conversations where he's probably had some legal action taken against him.
That's kind of what we've spoken about previously. We thought, is it a cease and desist order that he's received from somewhere, or
because he was attacked at one stage though, wasn't he? Mm-hmm.
Which is a nice little segue into the next question. Like, are you finding what you're doing now, is it dangerous? Have you had threats? Have you had anything like that?
Yeah, I have. But within the sector that we're in, we kind of like know the situation awareness, the dynamic risk assessment. So I'm pretty prepared for anything of that. Plus, I've obviously been in contact with the police departments about one threat particular that wanted to know where I lived and wanted to know what I looked like.
That's interesting. So again, that's kind of like a little segue into my next question is, do you almost feel, because I don't really see many other people on LinkedIn and various platforms doing what you're doing, do you almost feel alone in taking the fight to the industry to clean it up?
No, I don't, because we've got industry members that want to clean up the industry, and I thank them for it, because they actually say to me, Leigh, look, what do you think of this? And I'm like, well, you're onto something. And then they basically just turn around and say, oh, okay, what do I do? Like, we've had one person phone me up and turn around and say, Leigh, I've worked for 2 months. I haven't been paid my wages, and it's £1,000. £1,000 for 2 months. So you can add up the maths there. Are they being paid national minimum wage? Are they paying tax? Are they contributing towards the pension? Or it's just a number of factors that just come in. So I do get the support from the industry. Some people might see it as like I'm trying to prove an agenda or create something for personal gain, but it's not. All it is helping the industry grow and build that professionalism within the industry.
I think that's a really good point, because whilst these exist, and by the sounds of it, this is deep rooted, entrenched in the industry and a real problem. You know, we can do all the upskilling that we like and all that sort of stuff, but if there's people in the supply chain that are still actively doing this, it's never going to be a professional industry.
Well, there's two issues, isn't there? So the first issue is the risk. So effectively, anybody can get into various sites if they are vending these shifts out on WhatsApp. Any Tom, Dick, Harry could be turning up to cover a shift. But then the other side is the labour exploitation. So the modern day slavery, paying people £9 an hour, cash in hand, who's contributing towards a pension, who's paying the relevant taxes, and I think that's the side. What fix that one, and then the risk should be followed through and correct itself. But I think there's a hell of a lot of work to do, because even going back, when did Adam Jones start posting? 18 months ago.
About that, yeah.
And then the work that Leigh's carried on, these companies don't seem to be slowing down. In my mind, you'd be looking at it and thinking, they're on to us. Let's pack it in. But
let's find a different method.
Yeah. But if it's almost as though they're thinking, don't give a toss. We'll carry on going, because and Leigh will know the damn side better than I do. When I see the posts, a hell of a lot. It's the same 2-3 companies that seem to be out there, and it's like, what is going on with these organisations? But yeah, I think there's a lot of work to be done.
I think the biggest mistake these organizations forget is that, your first few were your big regional retailers, they were your warehouses, they were everything else, but labor exploitation just doesn't stand in one area. It stands in facility management, cleaning, security. It's a vast sector where at nighttime, if it's facility management, there's no one around. So how do you know that person is actually who they say they are? They're going through your files.
No, 100%. It opens up a Pandora's box. I mean, we in our previous season we had a lady called Lucy Manon from the charity Unseen, which is dedicated to ending modern day slavery and labour exploitation. And yeah, the sectors that are at risk are ones that you don't want. So she mentioned healthcare was a huge one at the minute. And she, off camera, she did say that she was starting to see a big trend in cleaning and security, because it's lone working. It's a lot of the time it's isolated work, and it's easy to get away with on the face of it. I mean, we've seen snippets online, obviously, of you tagging like HMRC and the SIA. We spoke briefly off camera about your dealings with the SIA. In your opinion, do you think they've got the resources to tackle this effectively at the minute, or are they kind of needle in a haystack? Is there a willingness from them to clean up?
Well, there is a willingness to clean it up, because it don't look good on their side.
The only reason why I asked that is obviously the majority of your posts you do tag the SIA, and they never. I know there was a post that they put out on the LinkedIn a while ago about whistleblowing and things like that, but there never really seems. I don't know if they're missing the boat, or there just doesn't seem to be much comms coming out from the SIA about this.
Now recently, I've been actually really surprised by the SIA, because I was at the Birmingham security event at the NEC, and just to hear Michelle Russell's turn around and say, "We don't like it, we don't want it, but it needs the industry itself," because the SIA is intelligence led. If they don't know about it, how are they going to deal with it?
Yes.
So they need people like us, people like yourself, and other people, even if they're a person or a friend or a family. Make sure you inform the SIA, because they need that resource. The resource is us. We are the information.
At the same time, over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of whistleblowing. But what we need to see now from the SIA is some action.
Yeah. Action and results.
But it's action that needs to be put out there. This is the action we've taken, and as a result, we intend to prosecute whatever it might be. And that's what we need to see as an industry to help clean us up and send that message out there to all these unscrupulous companies out there that we're onto you. We're going to be dealing with you, and we don't see that.
Yeah, I think that'll assist with more people talking.
Absolutely.
Because what will happen is, going back to Adam and to Leigh, if they don't see tangible sort of difference being made, it'll be a case of, well, they're not doing anything, so there's no point me going to that effort.
But in the last 2 years, have any of us seen any action from the SIA?
Well, they did go down to an event and they did stop 10 people from actually gaining access to an event.
But that's fine. But where is that being publicised? Where is the action that demonstrates the commitment to change the industry?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe not a question so much for Leigh, but I mean, I hope...
Absolutely, no, but it's an open question that we need to put out there.
100%.
So I'm interested to know, Leigh, what do you think security companies can do regarding sort of mitigating this? Because I think Alex said at the start, you'll have a main service provider will subcontract it out, and it might go further and further and further down. And some of them might be turning a blind eye to it. Some of them might be furious it's happening. But like for Adet, for example, so I've got a real nervousness around any sort of subcontractors. So we're in a position, don't get me wrong, we're in a position where our contractual work, we don't use any subcontractors. But if a customer came to us and said, we need 50 security officers tonight, we're going to need service partners. So that makes me really nervous that, first of all, so we're a real living wage company, and we will say to our service partners, you must pay at least the real living wage on any work that you do for us. And we ask for evidence to show that. But then if you choose the wrong partner and they subcontract out to somebody else and to somebody else, this is potentially where you're getting this £9 an hour, any Tom, Dick, or Harry being sent to a site. What do we think that the main contractor can do to mitigate that risk?
Well, first of all, if you have that issue, you've got the documents that they sent over to you for your due diligence. So you would have their insurance company actually under your due diligence, because that's what you'll check first.
Yeah.
To see if they're insured. Now, if they have done this, contact the insurance company, because they'll revoke their insurance straight away, because they don't want to pay out to illegal practices.
Yeah.
Now, if it's a legitimate chain, you would know because of how they carry themselves and how they push through on a professional scale. Now, as everyone knows, what is professional about security at the moment? Align your moral compasses together.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way you're ever going to find out if that person is actually genuine or not.
Yeah. I mean, we've had it. So we have one of our SOPs is that if we ever have an event and we have to use a subcontractor, one of our managers will be there to basically greet the individual. So we'll check the SIA license. We'll go through everything. And we've had it in the past where we've sent people away because we actually wanted someone to come and work for us. A really good guy, really good at his job. And we said, come and work for us. We're real living wage. And he's like, well, actually, this company, they send me a transfer, and he openly said to us, and I don't have to pay tax on it. It's like, whoa, hang on a second, how much are they paying you? And you don't pay any on costs on it. So we immediately got rid of that company, reported that company. But if they're doing it, then there's a hell of a lot who will still be doing it.
Well, this is why I said target the insurance company, because they don't want, like, everyone knows insurance companies don't like paying out, right? So if there's a way to close a company down and stop them from doing that practice, and the whole industry realizes that everyone's reporting it straight to the insurance brokers or the insurance companies, we're going to have a lot more people wanting to get work and legitimate work.
Definitely. Although I'd be tempted to get rid of the 3 strikes. I'd just give them 1 strike because, again, there's companies out there who'll chance their arm until they've got 2 strikes, then they might try and clean up slightly. So I'd be tempted to say 1 time, you're gone. It's over. Although
I think it just
then is create the company, don't they? So
we'll wait for news on that one because that will be quite interesting to see how that plays out on our system because we keep it updated every so often. So
I mean, how long have you been doing this kind of line of work? This kind of outing these dodgy companies and illegal practices?
Well, I started it first back 4 years ago. And it didn't really gain the traction because I had loads of people turn around and saying, what are you going to do? And at one point, I just sat there and thought, do you know what? I'm going to stay quiet, sit back. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to analyze the whole entire industry and watch what happens. And then start making the big impact. Because everyone's a good talker, but is anyone really doing anything?
So was that pre-COVID or post-COVID?
I think it was like 2020, so in the middle of COVID.
So from where you initially picked it up and where you started actually looking at this and analysing it, do you feel the industry is in a worse position now than what it was 4 years ago?
It's in the worst state since the 80s. And the SIA wasn't around then.
I think for me, I think it's hard to say. I understand why you think that, Leigh, but is it because it's more visible now that we've got social media and people are shouting out about these bad practices? Is it
always been this bad?
Yeah, it's difficult. And I think that with Adam Jones, I think because he started tagging in clients, customers, I think that's for me the first I actually saw where people really started getting involved and paying attention. And it was one of them, you'd set an alert that if Adam Jones ever posted anything, you'd find out about it. And then the first thing you'd do is you make sure it's not your company. And then I will go into meetings and HR would never have wanted to be in the meeting when we had a meeting. And we said, if any of our team are ever on any of these WhatsApp groups or they ever vend anything out, don't come to work the next day because we don't want to be associated with any of that whatsoever. But it's I don't know how it gets fixed. I think it needs everybody to be on side with it. Instead of liking a few posts, I think everybody needs to really knuckle down and make sure it stops. And I think clients have just as much of a responsibility as security companies and the SIA. I think they all need to work together on it.
100%. Do you think we've reached a plateau, Leigh? Do you think can it get worse?
Unless if there's no enforcement and these companies are left unchecked, probably a potential terrorist attack.
I think that's a real risk of that. Real risk. I mean, we were talking off camera before. I mean, I visited Canary Wharf last week and spent some time with the control room manager down there. And like we were talking through their security operation, it just kind of gets cogs thinking that, I mean, they've got a very, very robust structure down there. So you'd like to think that their risk was mitigated. But again, it only takes for one, an event where they need some help from one of the supply partners, and then that supply partner's a little bit short, and then they go to another supply partner, and then before you know it, you could have someone rogue.
I've got to say the ramifications are tremendous, aren't they? I mean, a rogue officer, whatever. I mean, it's scary.
I mean, Leigh, have you ever seen on any of these WhatsApp groups? Have you ever seen like a shift vended for aviation, maritime, and any high level security location that has really sort of made you think, shit, if the wrong person gets into this area, it could be a catastrophe?
2 words: nuclear power station.
Straight away. So if someone's willing to or wanting to do something, and they get into a location like that,
it's wiping a city out.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
But it's not even that. We got to also look at worst case scenarios within it. Like, if we was to say, oh yeah, it's just a couple of people tax evading, then that's the mindset of people that's not actually fit for the security industry.
Yeah.
Because they're not looking at the potential risks that could happen. And from what I've looked at from when the SIA was created of that bill, I sat there and thought, well, they're only thinking about what's gone on and what's past, but they've never looked at what's in the future. Now, if this labor exploitation and tax evasion continues to go on, all it would take is one fighting member from one of these boats coming over here, because they're not vetted, they're not screened properly. If I was to go right now and go over to a country where it's easily corrupted, I could turn around and say, right, if the UK ever ask, I'm a legit person, I've never been involved with any terrorist activity, I pay them 1,000 rupees or whatever their currency is the UK government really going to focus and pay attention to that word? Because the fact is, that person is of fighting age. He's here. He now knows that he can get training courses because he's been released into the general public. That general public now is at risk because there is a man on the float where the intelligence community hasn't picked up. And he's walking around, gaining training, working for these WhatsApp groups, gathering intel, working out who is who. And all it takes is that one.
I think
game over.
The risk is massive. Like I said, there's two sides. There's the security risk and there's the exploitation. And I think both need to be tackled as hard as possible.
Yeah. Who are the admins of these groups? Because, I mean, when you click into a WhatsApp group, you can click on the info and you can see the list of members and you can generally see who the admins are. Are these like security practitioners, or are these people that you don't kind of recognise?
So some of them you'll come across as actually some companies that are registered on Companies House. Some of them are actually employees of the companies.
What's like a frontline guard? Or like
frontline guard that's got access to the shifts, or it's just an employee themselves. Oh, I can't be asked to do that shift, so I put myself on it and pass it over to somebody else to do it.
So what? So they're passing their own shift on to somebody else?
Yeah.
Probably making a few quid at the same
time.
Well,
I was going to say, because they'll get, if you imagine Officer A says to their employer, I'll take the shift, that all goes through the books legitimately. So, it gets rostered on Timegate, for example, and they're then paying the tax, national insurance. And then they say to person Y in the WhatsApp group, you do this shift and you'll get 50 quid cash in hand.
And I, in previous lives, I've had experience of that, going back a number of years ago, pre-SIA, where people have rented out their own shifts, got somebody to cover it.
It's one thing getting your colleague to cover your shift.
It's
a bit different getting any job logs off a WhatsApp group to do it.
That's wild. That's happening, 20 plus years ago?
2004, something like that.
It's about 20 years ago. And it's got worse.
But I think you made the point about visibility before. I think there's a lot more communication. WhatsApp, WhatsApp, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever it might be. The social media aspects and is massive now, and everybody puts everything on social media. So I think that's why it's come more to the front now. It's not necessarily got worse. It's just more visible.
So where do you see this kind of trending, Leigh? If you can kind of look into your crystal ball, where would you maybe like to see, and can you actually see it going in maybe 12 months' time? Obviously, these things aren't going to happen quickly overnight.
If I was a genie, that would be my biggest wish, to get over with overnight. But yeah, no. If enforcement was done on a regular basis, and the SIA had a lot more powers to obviously not just do fraud or misleading of information and stuff like that, and go a lot more into the criminal elements, then the industry probably would start shaking up. But to be fair, with these scrupulous companies, I would like to see them close down, prison sentences issued, not just a hefty little fine, because a fine isn't going to save someone's life.
I think it almost be good to have a bit of a public hanging about a couple of companies who have gone through it. Really try and push them off. But I think everyone needs to work together. I'm getting security companies email me almost daily saying we can provide for £12 on an hour. And every so often, if I'm feeling that way, I'll reply to them saying, "How do you do this?" And they don't reply then. But so we need end users to start saying, "I'm not accepting a charge rate of £13 an hour because that's where the labour exploitation's coming into it. So someone's missing out somewhere." So I think everyone from security companies to like I say end users to security officers to the SIA to the HMRC, everyone needs to work together on it.
Absolutely. So I mean, where do you see this going for yourself, Leigh? I mean, obviously you've got your kind of your fingers in quite a lot of pies. You were saying off camera at the start. Where do you see this going for yourself over the next 12, 18, 24 months?
Well, from what we've done so far with the UK Security Industry Compliance Association, that is looking like it's going to be a big turnaround for the industry, because with every company, they have a modern day slavery statement and they have to update it every single year.
But what's interesting with that, sorry if I can interrupt, Leigh, when we had Lucy on from Unseen, she said that the threshold for having a modern day slavery statement was 35 million turnover. Anyone who falls under that, there's no legal requirement for them to do that.
But is that for the whole supply chain, or is that just the individual court?
That's for the individual company. So say Adept, if we don't turn over 35 million, we don't have to have that.
No.
Our supply partners, because that's kind of what we were getting at with Lucy, is the onus is very much on companies like us to vet our supply chain, because chances are they're going to be smaller than us. I mean, we have a modern day slavery policy. We don't trade over 35 million, but we have one. But some of the companies that we've used in the past and are kind of semi-using at the minute, they definitely don't hit that threshold. So the onus is on us to regularly vet those companies to make sure that the trading, I mean, it's something we put to Lucy about, is it possible, for people to lobby to get that threshold lowered? I mean...
Well, the NGO that we're working with at the moment, they actually have barristers, lawyers and everything else. So we're probably going to be pushing that to be less than 500,000.
It has to be. It has to be.
Because what we want to do is have that drop down to 500,000 and then have the whole supply chain. So instead of doing a modern day slavery audit on one company, we do it on the whole entire supply chain.
Yeah.
I don't think that necessarily stops it, but it's certainly a blocker to help try and mitigate it as much. I mean, I couldn't believe it when she said that it was that much at the time. So I mean, again, how long do you think, if the law enforcement and the SIA have and use the tools correctly, do you think it's years down the line before this gets cleaned up properly, or do you think we could be talking sooner than that?
It just depends really on what the Home Office is looking to plan to do with the industry, because they're the ones with the power ultimately. The SIA is not the power, the Home Office is. They're the ones that approve the schemes. They're the ones that improve the enforcement. They're the ones that does everything. So I think they really need to get their finger out and start enforcing and giving powers where they are necessary.
I think historically the SIA was set up to legitimise the industry and to get rid of the underbelly, the dirty underbelly, security companies, officers, whatever it might be. And I think in a lot of respects, what's changed is those companies that we were trying to get rid of have legitimised their operation and joined the SIA as part of that process. So the problem is still there, but they've got sort of like a professional side to it, if that makes sense. And I think from my perspective, it's action that needs to be taken now. So these organisations need to combine the thought processes and eliminate or deal with or fine, whatever it might be, penalise these operations that are acting legally. And that's the bit I'd like to see. I'm a massive advocate of the SIA, and I really thought that it would make a difference. And I think it has substantially. But I think it needs to be taken one step further now.
Well, I agree with you. It does need it. But I think it shouldn't be the organizations. I think it should be the SIA themselves and focus more on their independency. Yes, have them feedback meetings and everything else for ideas and suggestions, but stop listening to the underbellies in suits, which are the criminals.
Yeah.
I think it's important to label it as that as well.
Yeah.
They are criminals.
Absolutely.
I think it almost needs like a task force, if you will, of like industry leaders. So, your senior executives that you like, so your Mighties, your Securitas's, your G4S, your Bidvests, companies like us as well that are a little bit further down the turnover chart. But
it should be at all levels. Absolutely all levels.
It should be. If the industry is serious about, because everyone knows that this is going on now, there's been enough publicity on it. I just worry that there's a big storm coming around the corner where we're all going to end up. There's either going to be a really serious incident, or something's going to be out in the proper mainstream news that just makes us look like an unorganised set of idiots. I mean, has there been any chatter on that, Leigh? Like any talks or any suggestions on like kind of meetings, task forces, however you want to brand them?
So the SIA has Operation Empowerment, which they've just spoken about recently. On the media side, I can't speak too soon on that.
Watch this space then.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Nick, do you have anything else you wanted to run by? I'm just conscious of this.
No, I don't think so. I think we could sit here and talk all day and just say how sort of disappointed we are with some of these organisations that are doing this, and I think we just be going around in circles because I think we're all on the same page. It needs to be done. It's just what will be done.
I mean, Leigh, do you have anything that you'd like to kind of share with the audience before we let you go? Are there any can you give us your socials, your websites, or how people can contact you to kind of out these dodgy practices, or where they can go to whistleblow?
Personally, just report it to the SIA, or if you want to do it anonymously, do it by the Crime Stoppers. If you want to reach out to me, I'm on LinkedIn. Facebook I don't use as much. But yeah.
Excellent. Well, listen, Leigh, thank you so much for your time. I think we'd love to get you on in a few months' time and just kind of check in and see how your fight's going against outing all these, like we said, criminals. But thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your information. And we'll wrap the episode up there.